Hello lefties! In this tutorial I will teach you how to knit the Fleegle heel for toe-up socks. To begin, you want to have your instep stitches on one needle, a cable needle, something, because we are not going to be working these after you make the gusset. So here's the gusset on this side, and I already went ahead and finished the gusset. To figure out how many stitches to put on the gusset, you want to double the amount of stitches you have on for your heel stitches, multiply that by 2, and then subtract 2. So in this case I started with 12, multiply that by 2, I have 24, minus 2 equals 22. So I went ahead and did all my increases, and you can see them over here. There's one up there. So I've completed that already. So now I'm about ready to actually start the Fleegle heel. So in the Fleegle heel, you want to figure out where the halfway point is. So in this case, it'll be 11 stitches since I have 22 on my needle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, let's see if I have a paper clip or something. I don't know if I have anything. Oh well, I'll just have to count as I go. When I get to that point, I'm going to knit 2 stitches beyond that. So actually I'm going to stop at this spot right here. Get myself set up. One. All right, so that's the halfway spot right there. Now I'm going to knit 2 stitches beyond that. Now I'm going to knit these 2 together because I want a right leaning decrease. So you can see right here I have that right leaning decrease. Then I'm going to knit 1 more and stop. I will leave these stitches unworked. It's basically a short roll heel. Turn it around, slip my first stitch, then I'm going to go 2 stitches beyond that initial middle point. So let me figure out where that was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I'm going to stop over here. So I'm going to leave my thumb there so I know where it is. So I have to go 3 stitches, then I hit the middle. So purl back. There's my midpoint. Now I'm going to go 2 more. 1, 2. Now I'm going to purl these stitches to make a left leaning decrease when you look at it from the right side. So I'm going to slip 1, purl 1, and pass that slip stitch over. And when we look at it from the other side in a minute, I'll show you. That'll be the decreased or leaning in the correct way. Purl 1 more, leave these stitches unworked, and turn. So if we look here, that particular purl decrease left us with a left leaning decrease, and that's what we want. We want our decreases to create that V formation. Here it is over here on the right, and here it is on the left. Now the rest of this is pretty darn easy. You are going to look for that break where that decrease was and where those unworked stitches are. So you can see right here there's that big break. I am going to stop 1 stitch before that. So I'm going to stop right before I get here. So slip 1, knit across. So at this point you don't need to know where the middle of your work is anymore. You will just be looking for that landmark of that big gap. Okay, here I am. I don't want that gap in my work, so I am going to knit 2 together, and that will close that gap up. Knit the next stitch, leave these unworked, and turn. Slip one, purl across until you get to that gap. Oops. Okay, here's that gap. I'm stopping 1 stitch before. I'm going to pass 1, purl 1, pass the slip stitch over. So I'm slipping, purling, passing that slip stitch over. That gives me that left leaning decrease when I look at it on the right side of the work. Purl 1. And around we go. Making sure I didn't slip that first one, didn't I? One stitch before, so I'm going to knit the next 2 together, knit 1 more, and turn. Slip that first stitch, purl across. There's the gap. So I'm going to purl these as a, gosh, I just don't know what to call this stitch. It's not a purl 2 together, it's the opposite of that. Purl 1 more, and around. I will finish these last 2 rows, or the last 2 that I need to add into the work, and I'll be right back. Here I am on the final pass of the purl row. I will close the gap here. And purl this last one and turn my work. So all of my stitches have now been worked, and you can see that little triangle wedge. There's your heel, and you can see very easily all of the decreases here. And it happens to be so that since these are white, you can easily see them on this side. Now what you will do is you'll start knitting again in the round. So I'm going to slip this first one just like we have been. I'm going to go across. Okay, now there's been a big gap since we've done our work over here, and I want to close that up. So I will, hold on a sec, put these over here. Knit these 2 together. Do you see that gap? That gap would be there if I just continue to knit. I don't want to do that. So what I did, because I'm working on 2 circular needles, I just transferred that last stitch that was over here. That will be a knit 2 together onto this needle, just to make it easier for myself. So this stitch actually was on this cable needle, and I'll knit 2 together. knit across, and again, I don't want that gap on this side here, so I'm going to combine this stitch with the stitch over here. So I'm going to do what I did last time. I'm just going to move it over on the cable needle. Oops, it came off. Pop that baby over there. Okay, so now I'm all set to do that final decrease. Now I want to keep this as a left-leaning decrease to be in line with all of these. So on this side, you need to do an SSK, or a left-leaning decrease. Come on, just. And this now will close that gap between these two. I'll show that to you in just a second here. So now if you look, I now have that left-leaning decrease on this side as well. So it's leaning this way along with all of those. And that would be, oh, this would be for a very fat baby foot. So here's my gusset. Here's my toe. This would be the foot. Here's my gusset. And then here is the heel. Happy knitting! If you knit the Western mount method where the leading leg is in the front, this part of the video is for you. So in the back, on my cable needle, I have the instep stitches. These are not going to be worked during the heel. I've already increased on either side for my gusset, and now I'm ready to start the Fleegle heel. So to know how many stitches for your gusset, you want to take the number that you started with on this cable needle, which mine was 12, multiplied by 2, which is 24, minus 2, which is 22. So I have a total of 22 stitches right now. So now in the red, I'm starting my Fleegle heel. You will knit to 2 stitches beyond the marker, and then you'll do your first decrease. So I've already knit the first part. So here's my first stitch beyond the marker and my second. Now we will decrease, and on this side we are going to do an SSK. So slip 1, slip 2, put them on the other needle and knit them together. And there I have my right leaning decrease. Knit one more and turn, leaving these stitches unworked. Now to purl back, we'll slip 1 and purl to 2 stitches beyond the marker. To make a left-leaning decrease on the right side, I am now going to purl 2 together. Purl 1. Leave the rest of the stitches unworked, turn your work. So if you look over here on the right side, that decrease is leaning to the left, and that's what I want. To go back, you will slip one, knit across, and now you can disregard the stitch marker. We don't need to know where the center is anymore. Instead, we are looking for the gap that has been created when we turned our work. So this was that last purl stitch or last knit stitch, and these are the unworked stitches. We are going to stop right before the stitch. I don't want a gap here, so I'm going to close it by doing a decrease, the SSK, to make that lean to the right. Let's see, slip one, back on this needle, and knit two together, and you can see this leans over this way. Knit one more, and turn. We will continue in this manner until all stitches are worked. So I'm going to slip one and purl across, looking for that gap. I'm a little slower when I knit in the Western mount. I'm not as comfortable knitting this way. Okay, so here's that gap. So now I'm going to purl two together, and purl one more. Turn, slip one, and knit across. Here's that gap. So slip, slip, and knit together. Knit one. Turn, slip one, purl across. There's my gap. I'll purl two together to close the gap, and purl one more. Subscriber, I sure could use the help. Thanks a lot and happy knitting. Bye! Slip one. Keep slipping the wrong way. Here's our gap. Our decrease, and knit that last stitch. Turn your work. Slip one, and purl across. Okay, there's our gap. So purl 2 together, purl 1. Okay, it looks like we are all done, but we are not. So we worked all the stitches, and you can see my nice line of decreases right there and right there. But we still have 2 more decreases to do, because now we have 24 stitches on here. We have 2 more than we need on this piece here. 22, did I say that wrong? We have 24, sorry, we have 24, because we have 2 more than, I don't know, hold on, I'm getting myself all confused. 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yes, okay, so we have 14 stitches. We want 12, because that's what I started with. I started with 12. And you will also notice that if I were to knit right here, where my instep stitches are, there would be a gap there. So we need to do 1 decrease here to close that gap. So let me get myself set up for that. So same thing, we're still going to slip that first stitch and just knit across. So this is our gap between the 2 needles. Because I'm working on 2 circulars instead of 4 double point needles, I'm going to move this stitch onto this cable needle. So I'm going to put it on this left hand needle just to hold it, get this one out of the way, and I'm going to shove it on this one. That'll just make it easier for me to be able to knit those 2 stitches together. So now I'm on the instep stitches. And remember, this first stitch actually came from the heel stitches. So I am going to do my decrease on that one. Oops. Slip. Slip. Ooh, tight stitches. And knit. Now that would be closed up. Now you can see I switched, this is where I switched yarns. So once I actually sew that together, that hole would be gone. And continue knitting across. And again, here's that gap between the last stitch on the instep stitches and the first stitch of the heel stitches. I'm going to do the same thing and transfer this stitch onto the heel stitch cable to make it easier to put them together. Really knit these tight. Put these on the cable. And now I am going to, let's see, will that be a knit 2 together? I think that would be a knit 2 together. And there's that final decrease slanting that way. and it will close this hole up over here. Now as a reminder, I took a stitch from the instep needle and put it over here, and I took a stitch from the heel and put it over here. You may want to transfer those back so that you keep your stitches even and your separation over here. I don't know, I don't knit toe up, but just as a reminder, if something seems off, it could be that. And then you're on your way starting to knit the leg of the sock. So let me just put this over here like this so you can see. Here's your toe, your foot, your gusset, and then the heel. I hope that works out for you. If you would, please consider going over to Patreon and becoming a Patreon subscriber. I sure could use the help. Thanks a lot and happy knitting. Bye!